Hey, welcome into the program. I am Joel Klatt. This is Breaking the Huddle. This is brought to you by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. Lots coming up on today's program. We're going to dive into my top 10. I'm going to tell you about why I'm so excited about this season and the number of quality teams that we have in college football. I'm going to take you behind the curtain, show you some film on Ohio State, what they struggled with early in the year, and what they got right against Western Kentucky. That's coming up. And we'll get into some other things as well here on the program as we get set for a huge weekend of college football with all these ranked matchups. We're really going to find out everything we need to know about a lot of teams come this Saturday. But let's start with where my top 10 lands right now. So let's see them. Now, truth be told, I feel like a lot of these teams could have landed in a lot of different spots. And the first point I want to make before I even talk about any of these teams individually is that for so many years, for really about a decade or so, we could put a line at like between or under number 1 or number 2 or number 3. And we could say to ourselves, like, those are the only teams that are above the line teams that are really going to not only compete for a playoff spot, but that can actually win the national championship. Heck, we've had a lot of teams in the playoff that we knew weren't going to win the playoff games. Okay, so the elite teams in college football for about the last decade or so, maybe even more, have been, I would say, a notch above the other teams even in the top 10. Now, here's what's different. This year, I think that line is starting to move down. Two things have happened. Number one, I don't think we have the great team up at the top. Okay, like if Georgia had an incumbent quarterback and they were dominant against South Carolina, maybe I would say like, okay, Georgia is that team. But with the way that they looked against South Carolina, they're breaking in a new quarterback. You know, I get it. They've won 2 championships in the row, which is why I put them at number 1. But I think that you can agree with me in saying that every one of these teams, you could make a case for them being up there at the top and against them being at the top. So what's happened? All the good teams, they've risen a little bit. The top teams have come down a little bit, and that line that I was telling you about earlier, it's moved all the way down. And this is where I got to give a big apology to Oregon, because Duck fans, you don't see your logo up here, and candidly, I wanted to include you. You would be number 11 on my list, and that line is below you. Okay, so I actually think there's 11 teams that can compete for and maybe even win a national championship this year. Why is that so exciting? Because we haven't had a year like this in college football since I can remember, where it's this wide open, where we've got this many quality teams across conferences. To me, this is what I've been waiting for and arguing for a long time. Finally, we have parity at the top of college football, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. Now, few of these teams struggled this last week. I just brought up the South Carolina struggle with UGA. They're at home, 14-3 at half. That's really not good enough. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy threw 3 bad interceptions. They were in a 7-6 game in the middle of the second quarter against Bowling Green. Like, come on. Like, you got to play better than that. Texas. Stop playing down to the level of your competition. Being in a 10-10 game at home against Wyoming in the fourth quarter, a week after beating Bama in Tuscaloosa, is not going to cut it. You've got to hold a higher standard in that locker room, and that standard has got to be not just who you're playing, but what is within your team. So Texas had some problems. I kept them at 3. USC, listen, they haven't played anybody, but they look really good. I'm going to skip over Washington and Ohio State for a moment because another team that struggled was Florida State. Heck, Florida State, they had every chance to lose that game against Boston College. When you really watch that game and see what happened, Penn State did not look great against Illinois. They struggled. They did not block well at the line of scrimmage. Jerzon Newton, the defensive tackle for Illinois, made himself a lot of money on Saturday. That guy was dominant. Utah, they've got a bunch of injury issues. Notre Dame, have they played anybody? Maybe you could say North Carolina State. Again, there's questions for everybody. You can make an argument for everybody. Now, there are 2 teams, though, that last week went out there and took care of business, overachieved. In a week in which everyone underachieved in the top 10, let's start with Washington. Washington went out and hammered Michigan State. I'm a huge fan of this Washington team. If you haven't watched Washington, go do it, because this team can get it done. One of the best offenses in college football. Why? Because they got one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I've been telling you since the summer that Michael Penix is a great Heisman candidate, and that's coming to fruition. They've got great wide receivers on the outside. Defensively, they're better than people think. They're good up front. And I tell you what, man, they can throw the ball with anybody. This was not even close. I mean, housed Michigan State. That's a Power 5 opponent, a Big Ten opponent on the road, and they went in there and just drubbed them. It wasn't 10-10 in the fourth quarter like Texas and Wyoming in Austin. No. This was just an absolute housing of Michigan State by a really good football team. They took care of business. They've got a great internal standard. What's the other team that overachieved? It was actually Ohio State. When you look at what Ohio State did, albeit against Western Kentucky, what did they do? They overachieved. In a year in which we're constantly badgering Ohio State about the way that they look and why aren't you winning by more, they won 63-10. Their quarterback making his first start as the true starter, a named starter, threw for over 300 yards. They looked good on offense. They looked really good on defense. This defense statistically is better than even they were early last year. They're getting Marvin Harrison involved, who's the best non-quarterback, I still think, in college football. It's a beautiful long pass right there from McCord. So this is a team that overachieved. And yet, we still have all these questions as a national media and even their own fan base. And the narrative around Ohio State is starting to make me a little frustrated. Why? Well, because if it was Ohio State that struggled with Boston College on the road, or was tied at 10 in the shoe with Wyoming, or was in a 7-6 game and McCord threw 3 interceptions against Bowling Green at home, or was down 14-3 at halftime at home to South Carolina, we'd move them down in the polls. We'd move them down. They went out and took care of business, and they needed to a week before their biggest matchup to date. Now they face Notre Dame this week, and we'll find out everything we need to find out about this Buckeyes team. Now, I'm going to stay there in the next segment because they have had some things that they've needed to correct. So let's take a peek behind the curtain when we come back, and I'm going to show you what Ohio State struggled with early in the year and how they corrected it last week. We dive into the film room when we come back on Breaking the Huddle. Hey, what's going on? Welcome back into the show. This is Breaking the Huddle. I want to take a peek behind the curtain, go under the hood for Ohio State, and take a look at some schematics, okay? So first of all, you got to understand what they struggled with, and in particular in the first couple of weeks. I was hard on their run game, rightly so in some regard, and then Kyle McCord and his development. Those are two things that had to improve over the first 3 weeks of the season to get them ready for this moment going on the road to South Bend to face Notre Dame. Let's start with the run game, and more specifically, they did a poor job, in particular in short yardage, but really in general, of getting to the second level. It's really important that you get targeted and get hats to the second level. So let's take a look at this first play, okay? This is a short yardage play against Indiana. Now, they're in what I would consider 12 personnel, which means you got 2 tight ends, wide receiver on the other. They got 1 more wide receiver and 1 back. Now, the main guys that you've got to focus on in the short yardage are these 2 tackles and this linebacker. Okay, so this tackle, this guard, and this center right here have got to take care of that triangle right there if you want to get the short yardage play. So the double team happens between the guard and the center, and then that A gap is going to be cleaned up by this guard coming off of his double team and getting up to the second level. He's got to give a strong right hand and now get up to the second level, but he never does. So the guard is late getting to the second level, and guess what happens? Bam! It's uncovered. A late turn from the guard, the linebacker is in the hole, and now you don't get the first down. It's a little thing, but it becomes very important. So they're stopped on 3rd down. Let's take another look at a different play, and now that's kind of a zone scheme. Now let's go to what I would consider is a gap scheme. Now, in a gap scheme, the main block, in particular, if you've got a guy that's considered like a 6 technique, this defensive end, the main block is the tight end, and that's the block that everyone's going to read Okay, so his block, he's got to engage and try to work his guy one way or the other. The first option is that everyone's going to go inside of that block and get up to the middle linebacker. The second option is he mashes him all the way down. You go outside with this gap scheme. You're going to pull the guard and this fullback, and they're going to lead for the back. So there's the block. Now he is engaging him, and he's doing a good job in a man-to-man. Now the guard has to make a decision. Am I going inside or outside? And he stops and pauses for a moment before deciding late to go outside. I think he should have gone inside to the linebacker. If he goes inside, this back, if you look from this back angle, is going to be one-on-one with number 20, the safety. You're going to get the first down, and it's going to be a big play. But going outside in particular with some indecision allows the linebacker to shoot through and stop him. I get excited when I watch film. These are important details, and they're small details that have to get corrected. If you take a look at the film against Western Kentucky, you'll see that they did a better job getting to the second level. All right, this is an important note because against Notre Dame, you better make sure that you're covering up those linebackers, that the double team is getting movement and you're coming off of that double team up to the linebacker. So let's take a look at this play against Western Kentucky. And while it's a little bit of a different situation and scheme, I want you to look at the engagement up front, the winning of the line of scrimmage, and then how the linemen get up to the second level. And you're going to see these linebackers from Western Kentucky get engaged. Now, this is not a big, outstanding run, but it is an example of moving the line of scrimmage right there and then getting to the second level. You see engage. The linebackers are blocked, and now the back has clear lanes where he can choose where to run. I don't think it was a great cut from the back, but you see it's a positive gain. That's how you get 4 or 5 yards on first down, and now it's 2nd and 4. You can throw play action. You can throw the ball when you want to and not when you have to. But the important piece is that the offensive line has to get targeted and get up to the second level. So they were able to correct that for the most part. They ran the ball, I would say, much more effectively against Western Kentucky than they did in the first week against Indiana, namely because the offensive line did a better job in their double teams of getting up to the second level. Those small details are why sometimes the run game succeeds and sometimes it doesn't. Now let's shift to the quarterback. Okay, so Kyle McCord is now going to make his 4th start overall. When you make your first start, you're going to improve drastically from your first start to your second start. And then you're going to make another drastic improvement from your second start to your third start. Why is that? Because you make easy, fixable mistakes. I think I said that right. You're going to make mistakes as a young quarterback. Now, you hope that you're still going to win the game and still play well, which for the most part he did. But I'm going to show you some easy mistakes. And you're going to look at it and you're going to think to yourself like, well, geez, why didn't he complete the ball? Well, because he's young. He's making his 2nd start of his life in college football. But the important part is that when you make those mistakes, you go back and you learn from them. So has he learned? Has he grown in these first 3 starts in his college career? Let's take a look. First, a mistake. This is a 4 wide receiver set, and it's an easy concept where you got a one-on-one down low, you've got a control route in the middle of the field, you've got a flat and a curl. It's very simple. If he gets one-on-one on the bottom of the screen, he's going to try to throw it to Marvin Harrison. If not, he's going to go play the concept. He's got control, middle field control, and then a flat curl concept on the outside. So the first thing he's got to do is, do I have a one-on-one on the bottom one-on-one side? No, I've got 2 players covering Marvin Harrison. So he's immediately, rightly so, up onto the foundation. So now he's got the middle control route, he's got a curl, and he's got a flat. The flat defender runs with the flat right here, okay? So in my book, this guy's covered easily, and you've got a first down right there. It's 3rd down. It's an easy curl completion. What does he do? I mean, this is as simple as it gets, folks. He forces the ball to the inside control route who's covered. If I'm watching that film, I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, we got to work on that. That has to be corrected. Now, how is it corrected? It's corrected by teaching the quarterback that you don't have to lock on a wide receiver. Let the defense be your guide. Let the defense tell you where to throw the ball. Because the defense will tell you, and then you can, here's the old adage, take what the defense gives. All you've got to do is work your offense. Work through the way that you've been taught. Don't stick on one receiver. Don't make a predetermined throw in your mind and then stick with it with your eyes plastered on that player. Okay, so then you're as a quarterback, you're taught that all week and it's harped on. Okay, use the offense. Just operate the system. Well, did he do it? Okay, let's go to Western Kentucky. Okay, so now we're inside the 20-yard line. Here's what we're going to have. We're going to have a swing screen to the left side, okay? That little tight end is going to block out there, and really the read is this outside linebacker. If he comes to the quarterback, then he's going to throw the swing. If he peels off of the quarterback and goes to the back, then he comes down to the bottom foundation where he's got a little lookie and a slant on the bottom side. Okay, so that's the read. How does he operate this? Well, let's look and see. Kyle McCord is going to receive the snap and immediately look to his left. He sees that the linebacker is peeling off. So what does he do? He doesn't predetermine where he's going to throw it. He uses his offense. Let the defense tell you where to throw the ball. He comes back to his right. Guess what? It's wide open. Guys, that looks simple, and it's like, Joel, that's a nondescript play. No, it's improvement from what he was earlier in the season. Quarterbacking can be really easy because guess what? You just have to use the system. Everyone says like, oh, I don't want to be a system quarterback. Why? Tom Brady was a system quarterback. Every great quarterback is a system quarterback because you've got to utilize the system in order to make quality plays. Now, when big plays arrive and you've got to make those, yeah, you got to make them. And we've seen him hit shots down the field. But the little stuff, third downs, little stuff inside the 20-yard line, you got to play disciplined, detailed football and let your eyes take you to where the defense is giving you a throw. And he definitely improved on that from one week to the other. Last thing that I would say is just his numbers have improved every single week. So I just want to take you through a statistical very quickly. Every single week as a starter, you see him getting better. Kyle McCord, 60%, 70%, 82%. His yards have gone up. He throws the pick early, then it's 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. This is the mark of a guy being taught well in the classroom and then taking that teaching to the field and improving the way that he plays every single week. And we'll see how that pays off for them this week against Notre Dame. Okay, when we come back, we got a lot of matchups to talk about. Let's break down some of these great matchups that we've got this weekend. A lot of ranked ones when we come back here on Breaking the Huddle. What's up, everybody? Breaking the Huddle here. I'm Joel Klatt. Let's get into the games this weekend because we got a lot of great games, and so we quickly got to at least hit on some of these games. Let's get started. Let's start with Colorado at Oregon. Now, Colorado is without Travis Hunter. That's a huge loss for them, obviously, defensively and offensively. It's like losing one of, if not your best player on each side of the ball. That's going to be tough to overcome. This is a huge spread, by the way, 21. Colorado, their offensive line has got to play better than what they played last week against Colorado State. Meanwhile, this Oregon team quietly, I mean, this is one of the better teams in the country. Bo Nix has played incredible so far this season. Their offensive line has been good. They run the football really well. And that place is going to be juiced up to face the hype train that has been Colorado. So tough one for the Buffs as they go out to face Oregon on the road. Ohio State, Notre Dame. This game is so good. I personally believe that if Notre Dame were to win this game, it would be their biggest win in at least 30 years, because it would suggest to me that this team is an above-the-line team, like I was talking about in the first segment, that this team is a playoff contender, but more than just a playoff contender, because we've seen them do that over the last couple of years. It would be a team that would be a legitimate national title contender. Sam Hartman has been terrific. He started 50 games so far in his career. This will be his 50th start. They're facing a guy making his 4th start for Ohio State. This one should be a good one. Pressure on the quarterback. That's the key for each team. Ohio State's got to get pressure on Hartman, and obviously Notre Dame's got to get pressure on McCord. Ole Miss, Alabama. This one feels a little bit like Foreman Ali to me. It's like you've got the staggered champ in the corner, and I think that they're going to come out and come out swinging. The style of football will change a little bit this week. For Jalen Milroe, the starting quarterback in the Crimson Tide, I believe they should be more methodical, more deliberate, try to take away possessions from Ole Miss. And if they're able to do that, I think that they can go out there and win this game. They're going to give their best effort. There's no doubt in my mind. And then an under-the-radar game. How about Oregon State, Washington State in a ranked matchup? Two teams that don't have a conference moving forward, and yet both really good teams. Quarterbacks both playing well. DJU for Oregon State, Cam Ward for Washington State. And this is quietly, one of those games that the winner of this game is going to put themselves in a great position in the Pac-12. 8 teams ranked in the Pac-12. Six of them are going to face off this weekend. Washington State, they beat Wisconsin. This is going to be a good one. Oregon State, they can run the rock as well. When we come back, let's get into a little Klattback to finish things off here on Breaking the Huddle. Welcome back to the show. Let's get out to the old internet and take a look at what people have been saying to your boy. How about a time for a little Klattback, right? Let's get out to there. Okay, so Ryan says, Joel, no way Alabama even almost deserves to be in the top 10, maybe the top 20, maybe. So Ryan takes exception that I don't even have Alabama in the top 10 in the country, even though they've been on the most unprecedented run in college football history, even though they have 18 five-star players on their roster. Ryan, here's what I would tell you, is that last week was not a true depiction of what this Alabama team is or will be during the course of the year. Why is that? Well, because their coach, Nick Saban, I believed used last week against South Florida, a team that went 1-11 a year ago, to figure out who his starting quarterback was going to be. That was basically a glorified scrimmage to figure out who would start this week against Ole Miss. He knew what he had in Jalen Milroe. He needed to figure out what he had in Tyler Buckner and Ty Simpson. And while Ty Simpson might have a higher upside, he went with Milroe, and now they can develop a game plan and a style and a philosophy that will work for them moving forward. So you know what, Ryan? I don't think we've heard the last of Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. So that's why I have them in my almost top 10. That'll do it for us today here on Breaking the Huddle. Appreciate you watching. We appreciate Dr. Pepper. Remember, it is the one fans deserve. Enjoy the week of college football, everybody.